All right, Retro Nitro. Number 100.
For real this time.
For real. August 11th, 1997. 2 days, I guess, after Lex Luger lost the world title at Road Wild. Show opens with the Giant arriving at the building. He's presented with some sort of legal paperwork, and he walked away in disgust.
God, the Giant. We'll get into this idiot. What a moron. Let's recap what happened one more time. The Giant showed up at the beginning of the show, and he was handed a piece of paper, which he read. I know this because after he read it, he began shaking with rage.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind.
Michael Buffer was there to introduce the show this week. His appearances are so random.
I think it's been 2 weeks now, because I think he did it last week too.
I think so.
But the point of this is, this man did not come cheap.
No.
I was going to say, do they just have money to burn?
Yeah! That's the problem with this fucking company.
Attention?
Yeah, I know. I was being sarcastic.
This guy was paid who even knows how much money to come out here and welcome us to Nitro in Denver.
Uh-huh.
Did he do anything else on the show?
Nope.
I don't think he announced the main event.
Did not. Nitro girls danced. Announcers broke the news that Hollywood Hogan had regained the world championship from Lex Luger at Road Wild. And the Outsiders slowly made their way down the ring for a promo.
These guys were supposed to have lost the belts the night before. But they convinced Bischoff there have been just too many title changes. I don't think we should lose the belts. And Eric said, all right. And then Luger lost the belt.
Yep.
Even though there have been too many title changes. Crazy.
So eventually they get to the ring and start talking. And they're bragging about how they are bragging as if they won the match. The announcers made it clear they had lost via DQ to the Steiners. All I could think was they're holding up these tag belts, and as noted, this company had a surplus money. Why were their tag belts so ghetto?
They look tiny on these men.
Another thing about it, these may have actually been toys.
Yeah.
They were plain gold plates on the flattest, flimsiest leather you ever saw.
Well,
that YWF belt, though, may be sturdier made.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I got hit with it one time.
Well, not the brass plate, but I guarantee the leather on that thing's better than the one on those belts. How the hell are you going to pay Michael Buffer if you're spending all this money on your fucking belts?
I guess so.
That's the answer.
So eventually the Steiners brothers music played, and out came the two biggest indie geeks in the world.
The best part is these two dudes are coming into the ring, and Tony Schiavone says, I think that's Bobby Starr.
Right.
And who's that other guy? And they jaw-jack back and forth, and finally Schiavone says, that may be David Moore.
And
I was like, oh.
Bobby Starr
Okay.
looked like Humperdinck's kid.
Yes! I swear to God, the illegitimate son of Oliver Humperdinck is what I wrote down.
How do you know he wasn't legitimate?
Because it's funnier that way.
Okay.
The only reason I could tell it was Bobby Starr is because Bobby Starr had one single S, probably Sharpied onto his boot.
He also has stars on his gear.
Well, there's that.
Meanwhile, David Moore is out there. There's a term that's come up in the past year, maybe past 2 years.
Oh, yeah?
The term is dad bod.
Dude.
I know, Brian, you're a dad. You're not a fan of that word.
No, I hate it. And this was well beyond dad bod. This was mom bod before she gave birth.
Wow.
This round man with a protruding belly.
He was flabby.
Oh.
He had breasts.
I like it when they're real heavy and they pull their trunks up to their navel.
Dude, their navel, he pulled it up to his boobs. Way above the navel.
You could not found two more jobber-looking jobbers in your life.
They're with Hall and Nash, which has made this whole thing even better.
The only problem was they were both fat. There should have been one really, really fat guy.
And one skinny guy.
And one skinny fat
Jack
guy.
Spratt and...
Yeah.
Or Laurel and Hardy.
Exactly.
Yes.
They look like the number 10 walking down the ring.
Use Ty Dillinger's music. It's perfect. So Hall destroys these men for a minute, and it's great, and Nash hits one powerbomb and gets the win. Tremendous squash.
I do have to say that I am glad that we are here in 2016 and WWE still understands the role and the look of the jobber.
Yes.
Hey, the jobber this week on Raw looked very good. I'm just saying that because
He did. I'm talking about the first guy they had.
Who was it this week?
One of Buddy's students.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
The Outsiders then demanded anyone else come out and fight, but then the Steiners ran through the crowd for a brawl. Place had been cheering for the Outsiders, then went nuts for the Steiners.
If only they'd changed that damn title the night before, we wouldn't have this problem.
This brawl was so much worse than the squash match. Steiners cleared the ring and celebrated with the ghetto belts.
These belts weren't that bad, dude.
They're pretty bad.
I've seen bad
Go back
belts.
and watch. Meng versus Wrath.
Okay, listen. There's no bigger fan of Meng and the Barbarian than myself.
That's true.
Now, another cheap plug here for the Death of WCW audiobook. As
Where do you
many
get
of
that,
you are
Brian?
well aware, I had a co-author, R.D. Reynolds. So R.D. wrote a certain number of chapters, and I wrote the other chapters. But when I did the audiobook, I had to read all the chapters. Point of this is, at one point in the book, R.D. denigrates the Barbarian. I had to read it.
No.
This is very, very difficult and painful. But anyway, I love Meng. Why the fuck did Meng beat Wrath clean in 3 minutes in the middle with the tongue and death grip? Are they pushing these other geeks?
They gave up on Wrath.
I haven't fucking seen Meng and I don't even know how long.
Yeah.
This was weird.
So
I'll say.
they had a sloppy match. Wrath, on the list of terrible wrestlers who teamed at some point in their careers with Bryan Adams, Wrath may have been a little bit better than Bryan Lee.
You know what's funny is in The Observer, Dave thought that Wrath was the one who looked good in this match.
You remember that that Wrath ended up teaming with Crush
Yeah.
in Chronic
Yes.
Yeah.
years later.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a match so
just
bad
reference that.
with
Yeah.
Undertaker and Kane
Yeah.
that they were fired.
They had a match so bad, Undertaker broke character and threw a tantrum in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
Undertaker! The guy they all call Cool Hand Luke got so frustrated and so angry, he just stopped in the middle of the ring and started cursing.
They sucked.
Oh my God, they were bad.
Nitro came here years ago, not the one they discussed on this show, but they came here years ago and they did 2 signings. They did one with Vampiro and they did one with Chronic and Stacy Keibler. So drove out and saw Vampiro, drove up to the other, I think it was Pep Boys at the time. Chronic was there. And
Pep Boys?
Uh,
I swear to God,
It's better than Piggly Wiggly.
it's true.
You know what? It's not.
And walked up and got Stacy's signature and then said, "Where's everybody at?" There was a whole bunch of people there for Vampiro, and Brian Adams. What's
That's
his?
Crush.
Gave me the death stare. He's like, "There was a whole bunch of people here before you got here."
It's your fault, Craig.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Piggly Wiggly was
Make
at
it
least
friends.
vintage, unlike the Pep Boys. One way or the other,
What do you have against Pep Boys?
He
Pep
doesn't work on
Boys?
his car.
It's an auto parts store.
Dude, the stars of... Hey, you know George Clooney's going to be at fucking Pep Boys. He's
Wow.
going to be signing autographs.
Dude, Piggly Wiggly is a grocery
Get
store.
your goddamn oil change and meet fucking Pep Boys. They're both stupid.
All right.
Don't send your superstars to fucking Pep Boys and Piggly Wiggly.
So Meng beats Wrath clean with a tongue and death grip. Out come Mortis and Barbarian. The brawl that broke out afterwards, I take back everything bad I said about Bryan Lee.
Oh my God.
Take back everything bad I've ever said about anyone.
I double
ever.
up on it.
Holy God.
When these fuckers decided we're going to whip you into the ropes at the same time, but in opposite fucking directions.
Yes. So, let's see. It's Mortis and Barbarian. They do a whip from one rope, and then Wrath whips Meng from the other rope. Like they're doing a crisscross,
Right.
Mang hits the ropes, and he turns around, and now Mortis and Barbarian are a spot in front of him, and Mang just says, fuck this, and he stops running and steps out of the ring.
Yep. That is exactly what happened.
Oh, my God.
Hilariously awful.
Steiners and Ted DiBiase joined Okerlund for a promo.
Oh, my God. DiBiase calls out Nick Patrick. If they're turning this fucker, I've forgotten.
I think they do.
No.
I'm pretty.
Come on.
I'm not 100%.
DiBiase is upset with Nick Patrick. Nick Patrick comes out, and then here I wrote, oh God, not this again. Then worse, Nick Patrick comes out and says, the referee really should be mad at us, Randy Anderson. He cost Luger the belt. So yes, we're doing a ref versus ref feud again. The show then turned around greatly.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Jericho. What a great match.
Jericho was also supposed to win the Cruiserweight title the night before, but
Too many
damn belts changing
Things
hands, so.
happen. So the story here is Eddie was going over, but I didn't know that about the Jericho supposed to go over the night before. But he was on a losing streak. He had just lost the title to Alex Wright, and then he got beat by somebody, I think, last week. And this came off like Eddie was it was booked to go over, and he's going to go over, but he was going to do everything he could to make Jericho look great in the process. So he bumped and sold and bumped and sold and bumped and sold. And not only was Jericho hitting the usual spin kicks and flips, but he's doing press slams and power bombs and throws Eddie with his big German suplex. And finally, Jericho goes up top, but Eddie crotches him, and Jericho falls down, and Eddie hit a frog splash from an impossible angle for the win.
I think this is the match that Jericho has always wanted to wrestle, where he's actually the bigger guy.
Probably.
I mean, he started out with a gorilla press slam.
Yeah.
And doing all these
Maybe the only one of his
big
career.
moves. Yeah, exactly. Because Guerrero's smaller than he is.
Yes.
Can someone explain to me why Eddie Guerrero, in every single one of his matches, requested to do a powerbomb of death?
He really liked getting powerbombed hard.
Jesus, every single time.
The Benoit ones are most famous. But then I remember Malenko doing a super powerbomb
Dude,
of death.
I've realized it's everyone.
Yes.
Everyone he wrestles powerbombs him as hard as they
He
can.
demands powerbombing with all your might. The Nitro girls were dancing when Alex Wright came out to dance with them. Gene interviewed them, and he did every heel promo he ever did. He spoke in German. He said the American fans were jealous because he's so good looking and such a great dancer.
Worked like a charm.
Dean Malenko versus Jeff Jarrett. They were together as a team for like 2 weeks. They broke up with a pay-per-view.
Okay, let me explain this, because they didn't. I had to go into the Observer to find out what the hell happened. So the night, Saturday before, it was Benoit and McMichael against Jarrett and Malenko. Benoit and McMichael versus Jarrett and Malenko. In an elimination match. Were you aware of that? I wasn't.
I was aware they're doing a tag match.
So Benoit and Malenko did some great wrestling. Malenko was in virtually the entire first fall. Jarrett, who had tremendous heel heat, did nothing. Finally, Malenko tagged Jarrett. Jarrett didn't want to come in against McMichael. Jeff then laid down and held McMichael on top of him for the pin and strutted away, pointing at his head. This left Malenko against both. He got a quick flurry before he was overwhelmed. Hit with a tombstone first by Benoit and then by McMichael. And then Benoit delivered a headbutt off the top. And McMichael scored the pin after his tombstone in 125. The booking left the match totally flat. Does not explain why Jarrett walked out on his partner, besides that he didn't want to face Mongo. But then this led to them having a match on Nitro.
So the crowd hated Jarrett. They went nuts when Dean lit into him. Dean destroyed him forever, and it was freaking great. Jarrett tried to flee, but Mongo came out to block his path. Eventually, Jarrett hid behind Deborah and jumped Dean from behind to cut him off. And then he crotched himself in the ropes, and Dean made his comeback. He put him in the cloverleaf when Eddie Guerrero zoomed in to attack Dean for the DQ. So it's Eddie and Jarrett, and they're double-teaming Dean, and the crowd calls for Mongo, and out comes Mongo running like he's back on the gridiron. He was zooming down this ramp. He hit the ring. They had a brawl. It came down to Dean and Mongo.
He El Kabonged both of them.
Yes. He offered Dean a handshake. Dean kicked him in the gut and went to clothesline him out of the ring. Mongo totally screwed up the bump, almost lost his own head, trying to bump through the rope. He gets to his feet. He recovers because he's Mongo. And his response to all this And so look in the camera and say, that man's tough. I respect that. And he left.
I do love Monko. Dude, he literally was twice Malenko's size.
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice that? He's gigantic.
He's a very, very, very big man.
Jiminy Christmas, he was big.
Dean is a very small pro wrestler.
My favorite part of this match is very simple. Dean throwing a drop kick and Jeff selling for it. It was absolutely perfect.
Dean was great, and Jarrett was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
A lot of fantastic wrestling on the show. So during this match, they announced next pay-per-view is Fall Brawl. We always do War Games at that show. And I'm thinking, what do they do for War Games in 97? And then out come Kurt Hennig and Ric Flair for a promo, and I went, oh yeah, that's right. So it's Flair and Hennig for a promo. Can either of you explain to me what Ric Flair was wearing? Slacks and a button-up shirt. Nothing unusual there. And then this wool vest.
yeah.
He looked like a grandmother.
Yeah.
So they're out there. Flair wants him and the Horsemen. Hennig says, no, I'm not in the Four Horsemen. Yes, I was talking to Eric Bischoff backstage. We're trying to make a deal. And Mongo and Benoit come out, and Flair says, look, you're one of the greatest athletes of all time. We want you in the Horsemen. Hennig says, I've got a main event match tonight against Randy Savage. I got a lot on my mind. And Flair says, okay. We know Savage is NWO. We hate him. You take care of business. And then in Nashville, at Clash of the Champions, you team with me, and we'll face Six and Conan. Hennig agreed to that, but made it clear he was not joining the Horsemen yet. Eric Bischoff comes out with Scott Norton.
May I?
Yeah.
Please.
So it's Bischoff, Norton, Hall, Six, Vincent, and Bagwell. And first off, Bischoff brags that he told Luger he would pay, and he was right. Hogan is in Montreal making a movie, and so they all sing Happy Birthday off key to Hulk Hogan.
In Montreal,
Yeah.
in 97,
Yeah.
Hogan plotted the scenes of the Screwjob months in advance.
Maybe he did. So Eric says, Giant, let me explain what you were given earlier in the evening. It's called, and he says this very, very slowly, it is called a restraining order. And what it means is if you get within 50 feet of me, you will go to jail. You, Giant, cannot come within 50 feet of me or you will go to jail. And Larry, you may be next. And as he's talking, Bagwell gets out of the ring. He goes 50 paces up the ramp with a can of spray paint. He draws a line, and he draws the number 50 to indicate this is 50 feet from Eric Bischoff.
And very nice handwriting, by the way.
Yes. Bischoff then challenges the Giant to come down and fight somebody. So the Giant comes down. He starts heading down the ramp towards the line that says 50. And Larry Zbyszko runs out and tries to hold him back. Giant, don't do it. You've got a restraining order, and if you come within 50 feet of Eric, you will be arrested. So Giant walks, and then he stops at the line. And he looks at the ring, he looks at the line, he looks at Eric. Then he keeps walking.
He crossed the line.
And the moment he crosses the line, all of the security guards and the police and Doug Dillinger come out, and they proceed to arrest him.
Mm-hmm.
The Giant is baffled.
Yeah.
The Giant raises his eyebrows, his eyes grow wide, and he begins to question the officers. I'm being arrested? You're going to arrest me for stepping over this line?
Mm-hmm.
They proceed to arrest the fucker, and he is in complete denial and in befuddlement the whole time as he is taken backstage. Do you want to know how much sympathy I had for the Giant?
None.
Not one bit. This was the fucking stupidest babyface. He had an hour and a half from the start of the show where he received the papers, which I saw him read.
Right.
It was explained slowly, succinctly, and clearly to the man by Eric Bischoff, by his buddy Larry,
Yes.
and others. He stops at the line, which indicates he had some understanding that this line Like in Sleepy Hollow, thou shalt not cross this line.
Right.
Fucking crossing it, and then he's baffled.
Right.
And they take this fucker to jail.
Well, that's like that when you arrest anybody. I've seen cops.
What a moron.
And the funny thing, there was some comedy. They tried to put the cuffs on Giant, but they didn't fit.
That right there, Craig, is the least of my problems.
I know. That was the only thing I could pull out of it
What
that was
a
any good.
dumbass. Every fucking babyface on this show is an idiot. And I'll get to Luger.
The other thing I want to mention here is it started as Bischoff and Norton coming out by themselves, and then just as they started to talk, everyone else came out to join them. Bischoff was confused. Hall whispered in his ear, and they just kept going. I think Hall said, "Hey, let's sing Happy Birthday to Hulk." And they ad-libbed it.
Dude, he may have.
Hall also, when it was all said and done, threw his toothpick in Larry's face, and they were jawing at each other. The Nitro girls danced in the ring. They plugged Harlem Heat doing an interview for the website with their new valet, Miss Jacqueline.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was time
Yes.
for a once-in-a-lifetime match. Not the match. I've seen this match before, but not like this.
There has not been a match like this since this day.
There shouldn't be.
This was a slobber knocker no matter who
Yes.
was in the ring with who.
I called it the slobber to end all knockers. Thought you liked that. Benoit and McMichael versus the Steiner brothers. Steve McMichael was an NFL All-Pro and a key member of one of the greatest defenses of all time. And I promise you, he never got beat up in a football game the way he got beat up here. And may not have beaten anyone up like he beat people up here.
This was as close to a fight
Yeah.
as you're going to get in a match where literally everyone was cooperating with each other.
Yes.
It didn't break
That's the
down
amazing
at
thing.
all.
No, they were all on the same page. This is what they wanted to do. They beat the snot out of each other over and over and over again. And let's not overlook Mongo and his vocals. He goes to whip Scott Steiner into the corner. Ah! And then Scott hits him. Whoa! Over and over again. And I'm watching this. My jaw is hanging open. I can't believe what's happening before my eyes. And here is the finish. And I hate to see a wrestler get injured, but this particular match should have ended this way. It was only fitting. Mongo goes to the top rope. Already, this is a bad idea. He jumps off for something, but Rick catches him in a bear hug. And Rick says, "All right, I'm going to suplex this guy." Mm-hmm. Never mind that it's Mongo, who is huge and green and isn't necessarily very good at going up for stuff. Rick don't care. And Rick picks up this giant, and he hits this huge overhead belly to belly, and Mongo goes flying through the air and comes down on the back of his head, and he's out cold.
Dude, it's not even coming down to the back of his head. This was the Owen Hart pile driver without Owen Hart. He went straight up, and it was funny because as soon as Rick grabbed him and hugged him, I was like, dude, don't even think about it.
It's a bad idea.
You are not giving this guy. Hey, you want to go to the side? Great. But you ain't going straight up and over. Well, I ain't Rick Steiner.
Nope.
Rick was like, fuck you, Brian. I'm going to give this guy an overhead belly to belly.
Really? He was like, "Fuck you, Mongo."
He threw the guy straight up in the air, and Mongo comes down, not only on top of his head, but like his head goes one way and his body goes another.
Yeah.
I thought he broke his neck. I thought he was dead. And he was pinned.
It was better that way, yeah.
Rick suplexed him, jumped on top, the ref counted 3.
Now, it was weird because the announcers thought, dude's knocked out.
Uh-huh.
And maybe he was.
I'm convinced he was.
The only weird thing is, like, there was zero hesitation by Rick to make the cover, and there was zero hesitation by the referee to count the pin.
Yeah.
Maybe they were both in on it, just going, fuck, there ain't no better finish. It's over. Rick, you hold him down, I'll count. Oh, this was amazing.
So
This was the match of the year on these retro shows.
the Steiners are celebrating. Benoit runs over to make sure Mongo's alive, and Mongo starts kicking his legs to make sure they still work. And we got as far as him rolling over and sort of out of the ring. I was under the impression he left under his own power. I can't confirm. But the recap and all this, and the music starts to play, and they do like the crane shot for as they go to commercial. And as it fades to black, you just hear him say, "Boy, he planted him." Indeed.
Man.
What a fight.
It was great. It was so amazing. We don't get anything like this anymore.
No.
You have to watch
I'm
Japanese.
not sure we should.
Well, I mean, you could watch Ishii and Okada. But in America,
That was not like this.
in WWE, you will not get this.
Gene brought out Lex Luger for a promo.
Oh, man.
Lex is out there in his denim button-up shirt with the sleeves torn off, tucked into his jeans.
This was the end of Lex. Like, he said, when I won the title, I won't lie, it was the greatest day of my career. And in hindsight, he was right.
Oh, yeah.
There was no day to come that was a better day for Lex Luger. And it was so...
And no day before.
He was never the same after this. And when he came out, I mean, obviously he's a wrestler and he's supposed to sell that he's upset that he lost the title, but he had the look on his face like, dude, look at me. What the fuck? And he comes out and he bumbles his way through the promo like he's Sergeant Slaughter. And I mentioned this last week. Goldberg hasn't even debuted. He's about to. And they have some really big moments with Goldberg, and he's a big star, and they make a lot of money with him, and they have some great moments. But this Road Wild was the beginning of the end. The Road Wild was when the train first really went off the rails. And it only keeps sliding. Like, Starrcade's a disaster. The handling of Bret Hart is a disaster. Eventually, what they do with Goldberg is a disaster. I mean, it's one fucking disaster after another from this point forward. Sad. And I think Luger knew it. I think he knew it's over, dude.
He may have.
That was it.
He tried to paint the picture as the post-match celebration that brought friend and enemy alike to unite against the NWO. Maybe that'll be the turning point. It was not. He promised that someday he'd get his title back from Hogan because he's big. And finally he left. And he also cleared the referee. He said, I do not blame Randy Anderson for not calling for the DQ. If he had been quick with a DQ the week before, I never would have won the title in the first place. So I'm glad he was reluctant to call for the DQ, even though it led to me getting hit with a baseball bat and pinned.
Brian, you wrote the book. Did Luger know he was going to lose the title less than a week later when he won it last week on Nitro?
I don't know, but he had to have had somewhat of a clue because obviously Hogan and Sting was the big match.
Yeah.
That's
Here's what I think was at least was the original plan, which would have been a better plan. I think he was going to win it at Road Wild and then hold it for a month and then lose it back.
Could have been. I don't even remember.
Now, and I think they decided let's pop a rating doing the title change on TV.
They did that for sure with Hogan and Goldberg.
Yes.
That was a different story.
But so this led to then, and then Hogan saying, well, I'm going to win this title back eventually anyway. Let's just do it this Saturday.
All I know is this was it. Let's think about last week's show when Luger won that title. What a fucking moment it was.
Yeah.
1 week later, he had one interview. He was sad. Never saw him again.
Yes, they unquestionably pulled the rug out from under him too quickly. The thing is, in this grand storyline, Lex was not the ultimate hero. He was the ultimate hero's best friend. So he had his moment, and they should have let the moment be celebrated longer. He should have had a month-long title reign.
Dude, Hulk Hogan is in Montreal filming a fucking movie.
Yes.
You couldn't have kept the title on this guy for a little bit longer?
Yeah. And then, once he lost it, the best friend of the movie, he gets his moment in the sun, and then he's usually killed. Lex should have been gang attacked and put on the shelf for months. And then Sting would have come back for even more revenge. I'll have more to say about the Sting angle soon. But yes, the Luger moment, his championship win was such a great moment, and then what they did afterwards was everything wrong they could have done. The Nitro girls danced again. Buff Bagwell versus Diamond Dallas Page.
I gotta say that Buff Bagwell was actually really good until he broke his neck.
We say it reminded of every week, but yes, Buff was awesome. What was also fun here was the Diamond Cutter was over enough by this point that they could just have Buff be paranoid of it. Mm-hmm. He's always on guard. He knows if he gets hit with his cutter, it's over for him. So every time Page throws his hand towards Bagwell's head, Bagwell hits the floor. He's in a panic. Also because of that, Bagwell was ready for the move. Page couldn't get it. And so Buff's taking like 80% of the match. He's being very cocky. He's laughing into the camera, all this stuff. He does this goofy spot where he shoves the ref, and the ref shoves him back, and Bagwell begs him not to disqualify him, and then turns to the camera and winks. Then he goes to throw a kick.
This was awesome.
As Page is down, and Page dodges, and it's Charlie Brown getting the football pulled away from him. And Bagwell throws this kick and goes flying in the air and lands on his back. They go back and forth a bit, and Bagwell avoids the cutter for like the third time, and then Page whips him into Vincent and finally hits the cutter for the win. That was a fun TV match right there.
This was when I realized Buff Bagwell was pretty darn good wrestler.
Dude, this wasn't even his best match of this year. He's had some good stuff.
He was very good until
Rick Steiner nearly killed him.
got Henry Godwin. God.
Lee Marshall finally ran out of material. He did the road report. There was no weasel.
When the fuck did he have material?
He thought he had some.
break.
Well, he didn't bother writing anything this week.
More because Lord knows he's got other stuff to do.
Sure. He's got parties to attend.
Mortis versus Ultimate Dragon. A match that made no sense.
But it was cool.
I get There's some cool moves.
It's one of those matches where I'm just watching and going, only on Nitro in 1997 would you see a match like
But you
this.
see Canyon versus Ultimate Dragon. That is true.
Not even Canyon. Mortis.
Yeah. So the big spot is Dragon's running wild. He goes up top, but James Vandenberg grabs his foot. Mortis goes up top and goes for a superplex, but Dragon cuts him off and hits a face buster. So instead of this leading to more Dragon offense, it leads to a double down, and then Mortis runs wild. And I'm watching thinking, what's going on? I don't understand. Finally, Dragon hits a powerbomb and the Dragon Sleeper for the win.
You know, when it was over, Tony Schiavone went nuts about what a great win this was for Ultimo Dragon. He was so full of energy. And it was like, Schiavone's still good. He's still good right now.
Well, he hasn't.
It ain't going to last forever.
Hasn't lost his passion yet.
Let me talk about J.J. Dillon's promo. This is the 1997 version of this Ring of Honor deal that we're watching with Jay Lethal and Adam Cole. I love this angle. Am I the only one, Vinny? I absolutely adore it with all my heart. So JJ comes out, bumbling J.J. Dillon. He's still trying to figure out what Sting wants. They say, JJ spent a week thinking about this.
A week.
He's had 7 days. He's rewatched the tape. And they say he has enlisted suggestions from the fans and other wrestlers. Everyone is bombarding him with ideas about what Sting really wants. A focus group, so to speak. He says, looking back at War Games last year, the NWO won some pretty serious concessions. But the rules, they were in their favor. Sting, they still owe us some matches. And so I have got a brand new contract for you to sign. If you're here in this building, please come down, Sting. I want to offer you this contract. Sting drops from the rafters. I don't want to depress everybody, but if you see the amount of time it took for Sting to unhook himself from this, keep in mind, these were the reasons that WWE or WWF wanted a quick release snap for Owen Hart, because they did not want him to take forever to get out of his harness as the Blue Blazer. Sting comes down, he gets in the ring. And J.J. Dillon, in the most excited manner imaginable, says, Sting, I have got a contract. If you sign this, you will have the opportunity to face somebody from the NWO. You, Sting, will have the chance to face 6. I fucking howled with laughter. I'm not going to lie. I laughed out loud when J.J. Dillon said 6. Sting just looks at him. He takes the contract. He rips it up. He leaves. And there are 2 men in the building who can't figure it out.
Right.
The announcers all know that Sting wants Hulk Hogan.
And so does the crowd because they're chanting
They're
Hogan's name.
screaming Hogan's name. Sting is pointing at the fans. And Mean Gene Okerlund says, what do you want, Sting? What do you want?
He's right. That's how Gene said it.
And J.J. Dillon is standing there, befuddled, in a state of befuddlement, and he's got his head down, and he's got his arms crossed with his fucking piece of paper, and he's stroking his chin. God damn it, what does this man want? I mean, he doesn't want Kurt Hennig, and it appears he doesn't want Six.
Right.
Who the fuck else could he want?
K-Dog. It's got to be K-Dog.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
The whole room is shaking as you bang your fist so hard on that.
Dude, the whole world should be shaking in my love for this angle.
Okay, a couple things.
What could you possibly add? I've covered every aspect.
In addition to Sting's descent via cable from the rafters, whose bright idea was it to drop him in the middle of a crowd with no security, or not enough?
Well, they'd be there to catch him.
I don't know if this is the case, but as I was reading my book, Death of WCW, which will be available soon in audiobook form, do you remember in the year 2000, 1999-2000, when Bischoff was doing the new blood angle? And he had the bright idea to drop blood from the ceiling into the ring. Do you know how many times they missed? And they dropped it on fans?
I don't remember that.
Several times. It is possible he was supposed to drop into the ring.
I see.
And they just dropped him wherever the fuck he landed.
I see.
Vinny, they didn't know what they were doing.
No. I also love, there's a point here when the fans and the TV cameras had spotted Sting walking in the rafters to the point where he would drop from. And they're all cheering, they're going crazy. Dillon has now called out for Sting, and they're the only two people in the building who don't know where Sting is. So as they are looking up and looking around, Gene drops the line, "I haven't seen him. I was hanging with Zane Bresloff in the back." Like anyone watching knows who Zane Bresloff is.
They just had to put the guy over.
Yes.
Can't wrap my mind around the fact that they didn't do a dry run with like a sack of flour or something like that they threw from the rafters.
Have you watched this show?
No. Dude, they're going to throw Sting up there and drop him without it being tested, not even once?
Yes.
That's asinine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you watch this show?
So my only problem with the angle, again, is the timing. They should have had Lex lose the title and get put on the shelf, and then JJ is desperate to get Sting. Then they do the parade where he's trying to offer Sting matches and Sting keeps turning them down. And in the meantime, you could have had Giant, or better yet, Page, step up and say, "I will now be, in the absence of Sting and Luger, I will be the guy who fights for WCW." And then he gets killed and Sting has to come through at the end and save the day. Kurt Hennig versus Randy Savage.
What a waste of my life.
They brawled for a while, then Page ran out and attacked Hennig for the DQ. Savage attacked Page. Hall ran out. Hennig left. Lex ran out and chased everyone away. And that was it.
It was very sad.
This main event sucked.
It was very, very sad. I was looking forward to this.
So
you were.
Got nothing else to add.
I kind of was, but you will see, Craig, in the upcoming months that this is not Mr. Perfect.
Oh, I already know that.
This is the Axeman, Curtis Axel's
This is Curtis Axel's old man.
old man. That's basically who he is at this point. All right, so Kyle emailed, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this or not, but there is a B&V Drops archive, which is available on tindeck.com, and even has a top 40 most played songs per week. Which, by the way, as I look it over, number one is Billy Gunn, Hippie Hoppy Joy Joy. I have no memory of this song. But anyway, he has sent us a tune to play here on the program, so let's play it before we wrap it up. Oh, by the way, he says that he is sick of not hearing new songs. I'm getting angry at the lack of new songs lately. I took matters into my own hands and made a new song based on Granny's epic NXT review from last week. Enjoy. Well, that was awesome.
That's Hall of Fame worthy right there.
Kyle, you're great. Send us more. Send me a song every week, Kyle, or every show. Just send me some random show from the or random song from the archive, and I'll play it here on the air. Oh my! Well, everybody, that's it. We'll be back on Thursday with Granny and her weekly wrestling report, and she is working on a project. Maybe she'll tell us about on that show. And that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Bye.